The two people sitting across my desk had no idea they were looking at a ghost. To them, I was just a name on a building, a final hope. They saw a woman in a sharp suit with expensive hair, the powerful CEO of Phoenix Innovations. They saw success. They didn't see the girl whose heart they had ripped out of her chest 5 years ago. They didn't see the shattered pieces of the person they created, and then left behind. My name is Allegra Olvera, and the story of how I built this empire is written in scars they gave me. My assistant's voice buzzed through the intercom, announcing their arrival. Ms. Olvera, Liam and Cora Vance are here for their 2 p.m. appointment. I took a deep, slow breath, the air in my penthouse office suddenly feeling cold and thin. Vance. She had taken his last name. A bitter laugh almost escaped my lips. For 5 years, I had practiced this moment in my mind. I had imagined 1,000 different things I would say, 1,000 ways I would make them feel the same pain I felt. But now, all I felt was a strange, powerful calm. They walked in, looking smaller than I remembered. Life had not been kind to them. Liam's confident swagger was gone, replaced by the stoop of a man carrying the weight of failure. His hair was thinning, and worry lines were carved around his eyes. Cora, my once vibrant best friend, looked tired. The bright spark in her eyes was gone. Her clothes were nice but a season too old. They looked at me with desperate hope, their eyes scanning my face without a single flicker of recognition. I was a stranger to them, a powerful stranger they needed something from. Ms. Olvera, thank you so much for seeing us, Liam began, his voice shaky. We know you're a very busy woman. He pushed a folder across my wide mahogany desk. We've fallen on hard times. We heard your company is expanding, and we're willing to do anything. Anything at all. Cora nodded beside him, her hands twisting in her lap. She wouldn't meet my eyes, choosing instead to stare at a painting on the wall behind me. It was a painting of a lone willow tree by a lake, the same spot where Liam had proposed to me. I let the silence hang in the air, making them uncomfortable. I watched them squirm. It was a small taste of the power they once had over me. I remembered that day 5 years ago so clearly. I came home early from work to surprise Liam, holding a small box with a positive pregnancy test inside. I was so excited, my heart felt like it would fly out of my chest. But I stopped outside our bedroom door when I heard voices. It was Liam's voice, and another one I knew just as well. It was Cora's. They were laughing. They were laughing about me. She's so naive, Cora said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that was pure poison. She actually thinks you're going to marry her. I heard the sound of a kiss, and my world fell apart. The little box slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. The door flew open, and there they were. Liam, my Liam, with his arms around Cora, my best friend since kindergarten. The shock on their faces was quickly replaced by something ugly. There was no apology, no shame. Just cold, hard dismissal. I guess you know now, Liam had said, shrugging as if he were talking about the weather. It's over, Allie. Cora and I are together. He used my old nickname, Allie, and it felt like a slap. I stood there, frozen, unable to speak, unable to breathe. My dreams of a future, a family, a baby. They all turned to dust in that single moment. They told me I was weak, that I was holding Liam back from his true potential. They said I would be nothing without him. They packed their bags and left that night, together. And now, here they were. In my office. Begging me for a job. I finally picked up their folder, my fingers tracing the edges of the cheap paper. I opened it and pretended to read their resumes, though I already knew every sad detail. I knew about the failed business they started with the money they stole from our joint savings account. I knew about the mountain of debt and the small apartment they now shared. I knew everything. I had made it my business to know. They thought I was a stranger, but I had been watching them for a very long time. Your work histories are spotty, I said, my voice even and cool. I looked up and finally met their eyes directly. Liam flinched, and for the first time, a flicker of confusion crossed his face. He was looking at me, really looking at me. He saw my eyes. The same eyes that had cried for him for months. It says here you previously ran a small marketing firm that went bankrupt. That must have been difficult. Cora finally looked at me, her brow furrowed. It was clear they still didn't know who I was, but a seed of doubt was planted. I leaned forward, placing my hands flat on the polished desk. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Tell me, I said softly, letting the question hang in the air like a guillotine. Why should I give a job to the two people who told me I would be nothing without them? Their faces went pale. The recognition hit them like a physical blow, a sudden, shocking wave of understanding. Liam's jaw dropped, and Cora let out a small gasp. The ghost they had created was sitting right in front of them, and she was the one who held their future in her hands. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you show them mercy, or would you make them pay for every tear you cried? The next part of this story is something you won't want to miss. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified when Chapter 2 drops. I'd also love to see where you all are watching from, so drop your city or country in the comments below. Now, back to the two people whose lives were about to change forever. I let them sit in their shock for a moment longer before I delivered my final blow. I have one position open, I said, my voice like ice. But only for one of you. The silence in the room was louder than a scream. Liam and Cora stared at each other, the reality of my words crashing down on them. The hope in their eyes died and was replaced by a dark, ugly fear. It was the fear of a cornered animal. 5 years ago, they were a team, united against me. Now, I had turned them against each other with a single sentence. I watched them, my face a perfect mask of calm. Inside, a storm was raging. This was the moment I had replayed in my mind on countless sleepless nights, the first turn of the screw in my carefully planned revenge. Cora was the first to break. "Ali, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. She used my old name again, trying to reach for the girl I used to be. "We were friends. You can't do this to us." I leaned back in my leather chair, its softness a stark contrast to the hard memories she was bringing up. "The girl you knew as Ali is gone," I said, my voice dangerously low. "You and Liam made sure of that. The night you destroyed her, you had no idea what you were creating in her place. You also have no idea who helped me rise from the ashes." That night, after they left, the world lost all its color. I sat on the floor of our empty apartment for hours, the little box with the pregnancy test still clutched in my hand. The 4 walls I had once filled with love and dreams became my prison. The silence was deafening. A week later, a sharp pain ripped through me, a pain worse than any heartbreak. At the hospital, the doctor told me I had lost the baby. The stress, he said, was too much. I had lost everything. I lost my love, my best friend, and my child, all in the span of 7 days. That was my rock bottom. Or so I thought. The eviction notice came a month later. I had no job, no money, and nowhere to go. My family had warned me about Liam, and my pride kept me from calling them. But I had no choice. I swallowed the last of my pride and called my father, a man I hadn't spoken to in 3 years because he disapproved of Liam. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just said, "I'm on my way." He saw the broken thing I had become and decided to help me build a fortress where my heart used to be. Back in my office, Liam found his voice. He saw Cora's appeal to our past had failed, so he tried a different way. He turned to her, his face set with a grim decision. "Cora, be realistic. I have more experience. I'm the one who can actually do a job here and help us get back on our feet," he said, not looking at her, but at me. He was pleading his case. "She needs someone skilled." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that so, Liam?" I asked. "Then tell me why you are more deserving of this job than the woman you started a life with." He started talking, and the words tumbled out in a desperate rush. He spoke of his vision and his leadership skills, the same words he used when he convinced me to invest my savings into his failed ideas years ago. He twisted their failures, subtly placing the blame on Cora's poor record-keeping and her lack of ambition. With every word, he threw her further under the bus. He was choosing himself, without a moment of hesitation. I watched Cora's face, and I saw the exact moment her heart broke, just as mine had. It was a familiar, soul-crushing sight. Suddenly, Cora laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was sharp and bitter. "My lack of ambition," she repeated, turning to Liam with fire in her tired eyes. "You want to know why our business failed, Ms. Olvera," she said, looking straight at me. "It failed because this brilliant visionary spent our company's money betting on horses. It failed because he was too busy taking business trips to Las Vegas while I was at home trying to keep the lights on." She revealed his secret without flinching, and I saw the flash of pure hatred between them. I held up a hand, and they both fell silent. "Enough." The word was quiet, but it cut through the tension like a knife. "Your time is up." I slid a single piece of paper to the center of the desk, along with a heavy, gold-plated pen. "This is a generous employment contract. Full benefits, a high salary, and a signing bonus. One of you will sign it. The other will sign this non-disclosure agreement, promising to never speak of what happened in this room, and then leave. You have 1 minute to decide which one of you gets a future." Their eyes were glued to the contract. It represented a lifeline, a way out of the hole they had dug for themselves. But there was only one rope. I could see the calculations in their eyes. Who needed it more? Who deserved it more? Love and loyalty were gone. All that was left was survival. Their hands trembled as they hovered over the desk. Liam, the man who promised to love me forever. Cora, the woman I had once called my sister. This was their final test. And they were about to fail it spectacularly. With a sudden, quick movement, Cora snatched the pen. Her eyes locked with Liam's, full of defiance and a strange kind of victory. Liam looked stunned, betrayed all over again, but this time he was on the receiving end. Cora didn't hesitate. She uncapped the pen and leaned forward, her hand shaking as she moved the tip toward the signature line. But just as the ink was about to touch the paper, I spoke one last time. "You should read what you're signing first." I pressed a button, and the large screen behind me lit up. The job title was displayed in giant, glowing letters: Lead Janitor. Night Shift. The words, Lead Janitor. Night Shift, hung in the air, glowing on the screen behind me. They were a death sentence to their pride. Cora's hand, the one holding my expensive pen, was frozen in mid-air. I watched the color drain from her face, her expression shifting from greedy victory to horrified disbelief. A nasty little smile crept onto Liam's face. He thought he was safe. He thought he had cleverly avoided the trap, letting her fall into it instead. He leaned back in his chair, the picture of a man relieved to see someone else's downfall. He had no idea the trap was big enough for both of them. Cora slammed the pen down on my desk. The sound echoed in the silent room. "You're sick," she hissed, her voice filled with venom. "This is a game to you. You brought us all the way up here just to humiliate us." I gave her a slow, cold smile. "This isn't a game, Cora. A game is something you can win or lose. This is a consequence. This is the most generous job offer you will receive in this city, and it is the only one. And believe me when I tell you," I paused, letting my words sink in, "I have made sure of that." How did I know? Because for the last 5 years, my life has been a project. After my father picked me up from the wreckage of my old life, he didn't just give me a place to stay. He gave me a purpose. I enrolled in business school, and while other students were studying to build companies, I was studying to build a weapon. I learned about strategy, finance, and influence. Every late night in the library, every difficult exam, was fueled by the memory of their laughter as they walked out of my life. I wasn't just building a career, I was building an empire to crush theirs. My father was my teacher. He was a hard man who had built his own construction company from nothing. He had faced betrayal himself and had learned that being kind in a cruel world was a weakness. "Don't just get even, Allegra," he would tell me over our quiet dinners. "You get so far ahead that they can't even see you anymore. You build a wall so high they can never climb it." He taught me how to be smart, how to be patient, and how to be ruthless. He was the one who hired the private investigator who gave me updates on their every failure. Back in my office, Liam stood up, brimming with a confidence he didn't deserve. "Well, Cora, the janitor job is all yours if you want it," he said with a cruel laugh. "I think I'll pass. I still have my dignity." He straightened his cheap tie and turned to leave, as if he could simply walk away. "Sit down, Liam," I commanded. My voice was quiet, but it cracked like a whip in the silent room. He froze, his hand on the doorknob. Slowly, he turned back around, a confused and fearful look on his face. He sat. "Let me be clear," I said, leaning forward. "The offer was for one of you. Cora has rejected that offer. That doesn't mean you get to walk away clean." I pushed the other folder across the desk towards him. The one that held the non-disclosure agreement. One of you was always going to leave with something. The other was going to leave with nothing. The job is off the table now. The only thing left to sign is this agreement. And there are serious penalties if you break it. One of you must sign it before leaving this room. A new kind of panic filled their eyes. The choice had changed. It was no longer about one of them winning. It was about which one of them would lose the most. Cora, fueled by her fresh hatred for Liam, saw her chance. "Fine," she snapped, her eyes locking onto his. "Let him sign it. Let him be the one with nothing to his name. Let him be the one who has to disappear." She was willing to walk away with nothing, as long as it meant he was punished more severely. They were fighting over who got to eat the bigger piece of poison. I let them stare at each other, their life together crumbling into dust between them. "So you understand," I clarified, my voice cutting through their hateful silence. "The person who signs this document agrees to leave this city and never work here again. They also agree to a financial penalty of $5 million if they ever mention my name, or this company, to a single soul. My lawyers are very good. They once helped an old friend of my father's completely erase a man who betrayed him. This contract is ironclad." Now they were truly trapped. One choice was humiliation, to scrub toilets in the building owned by the woman they threw away. The other choice was exile, to be banished from the city, silenced, and forced to start over with less than nothing. There was no escape. There was no third option. Their future, their lives, would be decided in the next 60 seconds. They looked at each other, and all the years of shared history had vanished. All they saw was an obstacle to their own survival. Suddenly, Liam did something I never expected. The arrogant, confident man I once knew disappeared. He stumbled forward and fell to his knees in front of my desk. "Allegra. Ali, please," he cried, actual tears streaming down his face. "I'll do it. I'll take the job. I'll be the janitor. Please, just don't take away my life." Cora stared at him, her face a mask of pure disgust at his pathetic display. As I was about to answer him, my large office door swung open, and an older man with a severe face and iron-gray hair walked in. "Allegra," my father said, his voice like rolling thunder. "Are these the two pieces of trash you told me about?" My father stood in the doorway like a storm cloud, his presence sucking all the air out of the room. His name is Arthur Olvera, and he built his entire world out of concrete, steel, and a will so strong it could bend iron. Liam scrambled up from his knees, his face pale with a new kind of terror. Cora, who had been spitting venom just moments before, now looked like a frightened mouse. My father's cold eyes swept over them, dismissing them as if they were dirt on his shoe. He had a way of making people feel small and insignificant, and right now they were microscopic. He walked past them without a second glance and came to my desk. "I was on my way to the golf club," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Your assistant said you had some old business to clean up." I see now she meant you were taking out the trash. He looked at Liam, who flinched as if he'd been struck. I kept my voice steady. Father, this is Liam and Cora Vance. I was just finishing up with them. A small, dangerous smile played on my father's lips. Is that so? It looked to me like you were playing with your food, Allegra. The reason my father hated them so much wasn't just because of me. It was because he saw his own past in my pain. Years ago, when he was a young man just starting out, he had a business partner. This man was his best friend, the best man at his wedding, the godfather to his first child. And this man betrayed him. He stole all the company's money, took all their clients, and left my father with nothing but debt and shame. My father lost everything. That betrayal carved something hard and unforgiving into his soul. He never forgot it. He spent the next 20 years not just rebuilding his life, but planning his revenge. He worked day and night, growing his new company into an unstoppable force. All the while, he watched his old partner's life from a distance. When the time was right, he didn't just compete with the man. He systematically destroyed him. He bought out his suppliers, hired away his best employees, and finally, bought the bank that held his loans. He ruined him completely, leaving him with the same nothing he had started with. That was the lesson he taught me. True victory isn't just winning. It's making sure your enemy can never play the game again. Back in my office, my father's eyes landed on the 2 contracts I had offered. He picked them up, his large, calloused hands making the paper look fragile. He glanced at the janitor contract and the non-disclosure agreement, and then he let out a short, harsh laugh. Allegra, this is beneath you, he said, not unkindly. A job cleaning floors? A promise to leave town? You're offering them an escape. Then, before any of us could react, he ripped both documents in half and dropped the pieces on the desk like confetti. The deals were gone. Liam and Cora stared at the torn paper, their faces a mixture of confusion and a tiny spark of hope. Did this mean they were free to go? Were they getting away with it? My father saw the look on their faces and his expression hardened. The mistake you're making, he said to me, but his eyes were locked on them, is that you are still giving them your time and energy. The goal of revenge isn't to make your enemies suffer. The goal is to make them disappear. He was changing the rules, and his game was far more brutal than mine. He then turned his full attention to Liam. You, he said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. You took my daughter's future. You took the money she saved. And you cost me my first grandchild. The final words hit the air with the force of a physical blow. Liam stumbled back, his face turning the color of ash. Cora gasped and looked at Liam, her eyes wide with shock. It was clear he had never told her about the baby. My father knew everything. He had been waiting 5 years for this moment, just as I had. Without taking his eyes off them, my father pulled out his phone and made a call. Marcus, it's Arthur Olvera, he said. I have a security issue on the 40th floor. I need 2 people escorted from the premises and a permanent trespass order filed with the police. He paused. And one more thing. Call our man at Sterling Bank. I want to purchase an outstanding business loan. The last name is Vance. Buy all of it. He hung up. Just like that, he hadn't just thrown them out. He had bought their debt. They now owed their entire failed life to him. The full weight of their new reality settled on them. It was no longer about finding a job or saving their pride. They were now financially shackled to a ruthless man who hated them. They had walked into my office hoping for a lifeline, and now they were chained to an anchor and thrown into the deepest part of the ocean. There would be no escape, no starting over. My father would own them, and he was not a forgiving man. Cora finally broke, tears streaming silently down her face. Liam just stood there, a hollowed-out shell of a man. 2 huge security guards in black suits entered the room, their presence filling what little space was left. Mr. Olvera? One of them asked. My father simply nodded his head towards Liam and Cora. Take them downstairs. See that they are escorted off the property. Make it clear that if they ever set foot in this part of the city again, they will be arrested." As the guards gently but firmly took their arms, a defeated Cora looked over her shoulder at me one last time. "Was our friendship ever real, Ali?" she whispered. Before I could find the words to answer, my father stepped between us, blocking my view of her. "Her name is Ms. Olvera," he said to her, his voice like ice. "And you have 2 minutes to get out of her sight forever." The heavy office door clicked shut, sealing Liam and Cora out of my life forever. The silence they left behind was vast and deafening. My father stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city lights that glittered like a sea of scattered diamonds. My city. My kingdom. I had won. Everything I had worked for over the past 5 years had led to this moment. I had faced my monsters and watched them crawl away broken. But as I sank back into my chair, the feeling of triumph I expected was nowhere to be found. In its place was just a deep, hollow emptiness. Cora's last question echoed in the quiet room. "Was our friendship ever real?" My father turned away from the window, his face unreadable. "It's finished," he said, his voice a matter-of-fact statement. "They are a problem you will never have to waste another thought on." He thought I would be celebrating, or at least relieved. But he saw the look on my face, the storm inside me that had not calmed. "What is it, Allegra?" he asked, his tone softer than usual. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" Was it? I thought it was. I thought seeing them destroyed would heal the wound they left behind. But the wound was still there, an old scar that ached with a phantom pain. I closed my eyes, and for a split second, I wasn't in my cold modern office. I was 17 again, sitting in a sleeping bag on Cora's bedroom floor. We were whispering secrets by the light of a flashlight, planning our futures. She was going to be a famous artist, and I was going to be a writer. We promised we would live in the same city forever, that we would be the godmothers to each other's children. We pinky promised. In that memory, her laugh was genuine. Her friendship felt as real and solid as the ground beneath me. It felt real. Then another memory surfaced. Liam, on our 3rd date, standing in the pouring rain outside my apartment with a bouquet of soggy daisies because he had messed up our dinner reservation. He looked so sorry, so sincere. He told me then that he felt like he had known me his whole life. He made me feel seen, cherished, and safe. I had fallen in love not with the monster he became, but with the charming, goofy boy who brought me wet flowers in the rain. Before the betrayal, there was love. Before the hatred, there was a real friendship. That's what hurt the most. It was all real, and they chose to burn it down anyway. "It was what I thought I wanted," I finally said, opening my eyes and looking at my father. "But now that it's over, I just feel tired." A rare look of understanding crossed his face. "Revenge is a heavy meal, Allegra," he said, walking over to the small bar in the corner of my office. "It fills you up, but it doesn't nourish you." He poured 2 glasses of water. "Now you are free. Free to focus on building, not breaking. Which is good, because we have the Sterling Tower bid to win. And our new competitor, Mr. Zhao, is not going to make it easy." He pushed a button on my desk, and the screen that had shown the janitor job now displayed the blueprints for a magnificent skyscraper. The Sterling Tower. It was the most ambitious construction project the city had seen in 50 years. Winning the contract would make our company, Olvera Holdings, a legend. Mr. Zhao was a powerful billionaire from Shanghai who had been buying up property all over the city. He was known for being aggressive, brilliant, and utterly ruthless. My father was handing me my next war, a war of business, not emotion. A war I could truly win. I looked at the elegant lines of the tower, a spire of glass and steel reaching for the sky. For the first time all day, I felt a flicker of something new. It wasn't pain or anger. It was purpose. This was the real work. This was how I would prove my strength, not by tearing down 2 broken people, but by building something permanent, something that would outlast all of us. My father was right. He knew I needed a new mountain to climb, a bigger dragon to slay. The ghosts of my past were gone, Now it was time to face the future. Just then, the intercom on my desk buzzed, startling me. It was my assistant, her voice hesitant. "Ms. Olvera, I am so sorry to interrupt, but there is a woman at the front desk who insists on seeing you. She won't leave. She says her name is Elena Vance." My blood ran cold. Elena, Liam's mother. She says it's an emergency. My mind raced. Why was she here? Did Liam and Cora send her? Was this another trick? Another plea for mercy from a different angle? My father's face darkened. "Tell her to leave," he said, his voice hard as stone. "We are done with that family." But I hesitated. I remembered Elena. She was a kind, gentle woman who treated me like the daughter she never had. When Liam and I got engaged, she gave me a delicate pearl necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. She had hugged me and told me she was so happy to finally have a daughter in the family. She was innocent in all of this. What could be so urgent? Against my father's cold glare, I made a decision. I was no longer the weak girl who could be manipulated. I was the CEO of this company. I would decide who I see. "No," I said, my voice finding its old strength. "It's okay. Send her in." My father took a step towards me, a warning in his eyes. "Allegra, this is a mistake. Nothing good can come from digging up a grave." The door to my office began to open, and I held my breath, steeling myself for whatever came next. Was it a plea? A threat? Or something else entirely? The door swung inward, revealing a woman who looked like a faded photograph of the person I remembered. Elena Vance was smaller than I recalled, her shoulders stooped with a weight that wasn't just age. Her hair was grayer, her face a roadmap of worry. She clutched a worn-out leather handbag to her chest like a shield. Her eyes, filled with a deep and familiar kindness, found mine across the vast expanse of the office. She ignored my father, who stood like a stone statue by the window, and took a hesitant step inside. For a moment, she was just Elena, the woman who taught me how to bake apple pie. "Allegra," she began, her voice a fragile whisper. "I know I have no right to be here. I know what my son and Cora did to you was wrong." She took another shaky step forward. "I just got off the phone with Liam. He was broken. He told me what happened here today. He said you, and your father—" She trailed off, unable to speak the words. She wasn't here to fight or make excuses. She was here because she was a mother, and her son was in trouble. But I had a feeling there was more to it than just that. She reached my desk and, with trembling hands, opened her handbag. She didn't pull out a picture or a letter. She pulled out a small, dark blue velvet box and pushed it gently across the polished wood towards me. "Before anything else," she said, her eyes filling with tears, "I had to bring this back. It should have never been kept. I knew what it was before I opened it." Inside, nestled on the faded silk, was the delicate pearl necklace her grandmother had worn on her wedding day. Seeing it again was like a punch to the gut, a beautiful reminder of a beautiful lie. The memory was so clear. It was our engagement party in her cozy little backyard. She had pulled me away from the crowd, towards the rose bushes she was so proud of. She pressed this same box into my hand. "Every woman in our family has worn this on her wedding day," she had whispered, her smile so warm and genuine. "I always wished I'd had a daughter to pass it to. Now I do." I had hugged her so tightly, feeling for the first time like I truly belonged to a family. That memory was a ghost that had haunted me for years. I closed the box and gently pushed it back towards her. "Elena, I can't take this." From the corner of the room, my father's voice cut in, sharp and cold. "That's right. We want nothing from your family. Not an apology, and not a cheap necklace." Elena flinched but did not look at him. Her pleading eyes stayed locked on mine. "This isn't for you, Allegra. This is for me," she insisted. "It's the one small piece of this whole mess that I can make right." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "And there is something else. Something you deserve to know. Something Liam never told you." Her words hung in the air, and my father fell silent, watching. "The money Liam took from your savings," Elena continued, her voice barely audible. "It wasn't just to start a business with Cora. The truth is, my husband, Robert, was sick. He was dying." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Robert, Liam's kind, funny father who always had a story to tell, was sick? He needed a special treatment, an experimental one that the insurance company refused to pay for. "It was our only hope. Liam used your money to pay for it. He was trying to save his father." The confession stunned me into silence. This wasn't the story of simple greed and betrayal I had told myself for 5 years. It was messier, sadder. It didn't make what he did right, but it changed the shape of it. It explained the desperation, the terrible choices. "Did it work?" I asked, my voice soft. Elena shook her head, a single tear tracing a path down her wrinkled cheek. "No. Robert passed away 2 years ago. We lost him, and we lost the money too. Liam, a part of him died with his father. He's been a ghost ever since, making bad choices, trying to fix something that can never be fixed." My father, ever the cynic, finally spoke. "A tragic story," he said, his voice hard. "It doesn't change the fact that your son is a thief who betrayed my daughter and used a dying man as an excuse." For the first time, Elena looked at my father, and a flash of fierce maternal fire lit up her tired eyes. "My son is a fool and a coward," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "But he is my son. I am not here to ask for your pity or your money. I'm here to ask for something only Allegra has the power to give." She turned back to me, her brief defiance melting away into desperation. "What you and your father have done today, it will be the end of him. I know he deserves to be punished, but your father owning his debt, he will never be free. Liam isn't strong enough to survive being hunted like that. Please, Allegra, I am not asking you to forgive him. I am begging you to let him go. Call your father off." She was asking me to stop my own revenge, the one thing that had driven me for 5 years. She leaned in closer, her eyes searching mine for any sign of the girl she used to know. "There is one last secret, Allegra. A secret Robert made me promise to keep from Liam, to protect him." She glanced nervously at my father, then focused back on me, her voice dropping to a terrified whisper. "The cancer my husband had. The doctors said it's genetic. They told us there is a 50% chance Liam has it, too. He's supposed to be tested every year." She paused, delivering the final, devastating blow. "He's never been. Not once. He's too afraid to know." Elena's words fell into the silent room and shattered the world I had built. A man who might be dying. A ticking clock I never knew existed. My revenge was supposed to be a clean, sharp blade. I wanted to see justice. But this felt different. This wasn't justice. It was a potential death sentence, and the judge was a random flip of a genetic coin. The villain of my story was suddenly just a pathetic, scared man, and the victory I felt moments ago now tasted like ash in my mouth. My plan was perfect, but it was for a monster, not for a dying man. My father's voice sliced through my thoughts, cold and sharp as broken glass. "It's a sad story if it's even true," he said, his arms crossed over his chest. "But it changes nothing. He made his choices, and a guilty conscience is part of the price. It is not our problem." He turned his glare on Elena. "You've said your piece. You can see yourself out now." He was dismissing her, dismissing this life-altering information as if it were a business deal he didn't like. But something inside me, a part one thought was long dead, wouldn't let it go. "Wait," I said. My voice was quiet, but it stopped my father in his tracks. He turned to look at me, his eyebrows raised in surprise and a flicker of anger. For the first time I was standing against him. For 5 years he had been my general, and I had been his perfect soldier. But this wasn't war, it was something else. To understand why I stopped him, You have to understand my darkest moment. I remember lying in a hospital bed after losing the baby, feeling like a hollow shell. My father was there, not holding my hand, but handing me a stack of business school brochures. "Get up," he'd said. "Crying doesn't build empires." He saved my life, but he did it by burying my heart under layers of steel and concrete. He taught me that strength was the absence of feeling. But I remembered one night, months later, when he found me crying in the dark in his library. For a moment, he wasn't my general. He was just my dad. He sat with me and said something I never forgot. "Feeling pain doesn't make you weak, Allegra. What you do with it is what truly defines you." He meant for me to turn my pain into a weapon. But standing here now, I realized it could be turned into something else. I looked at Elena's tear-streaked, hopeful face, and then at my father's hard, unforgiving one. I made a choice. Not as his soldier, but as myself. "I will help," I announced, and the words felt both strange and right on my tongue. But on one very important condition. My father's jaw tightened in anger. Elena leaned forward, hanging on my every word. My condition wasn't for them to pay me back in money. The debt they owed me was far greater than that. It was a debt of character, and I was going to force them to pay it. "Here is my offer," I said, my voice now steady and full of the power I had earned. "I will instruct my father to cancel the purchase of your debt. You will be free from him. I will also pay for all of Liam's medical tests and any treatment he needs." Elena began to sob with relief, but I held up a hand to stop her. "In return, Liam must go to the doctor tomorrow to be tested. He must face his fear. And Cora must be the one to make sure he goes. His life will be in her hands, just as my life was once in theirs." This was my new revenge. A better one. I wouldn't destroy them. I would force them to be better. I would force them to face the hardest truths of their lives, together. Cora, who ran away from responsibility, would now be responsible for the life of the man she ruined her own for. Liam, who lived his life as a coward, would have to find a single shred of courage. They would have to depend on each other, not for money or success, but for life itself. And they would owe that chance, every single day of it, to me. "Allegra, what is the meaning of this?" my father demanded, pulling me away from the desk. His voice was a low, furious whisper. "You are showing weakness. After everything they did, you are letting them off the hook with a slap on the wrist." I stood tall and met his angry gaze without flinching. "No, father. You taught me that power is control. Crushing them is easy. Forcing them to live and to know that I am the reason why. That is true control. They will never be free of me. My mercy will be a heavier chain than your debt ever could be." My father stared at me for a long, silent moment. I could see a battle happening behind his eyes. He was seeing the woman he had created, but she was no longer just following his orders. She was writing her own. He saw my pain not as a weapon of destruction, but as a tool for a different kind of power. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he gave a single sharp nod. "Fine," he bit out. "This is your decision. But I give you my word, if they fail this test of yours, I will not be so merciful a second time." I turned back to Elena and took a business card from my desk. "This is the doctor. He is the best. His clinic opens at 9 in the morning. Be there." Elena took the card as if it were a winning lottery ticket. "Thank you, Allegra. Thank you," she cried. She walked to the door, a broken woman who had just been given a sliver of hope. At the doorway, she stopped and turned back to me, her face pale. "There's one more thing," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Something I just found out an hour ago. You deserve to know." She paused, and delivered the final blow. "Cora is pregnant." The door clicked shut, and Elena's final words seemed to suck all the oxygen from my penthouse office. "Cora is pregnant." 2 words. 2 words that undid years of my carefully built armor, leaving me exposed and bleeding. It was a cruel echo from a past I had tried to bury. The baby that should have been mine, the life that was stolen from me, was now being given to the woman who helped steal it. My father stood frozen for a beat, his face a mask of disbelief that quickly hardened into pure, unadulterated rage. The ghost of my lost child suddenly had a new, unbearable shape. "This," my father finally said, his voice dangerously low, "changes everything." He walked back towards my desk, his movements stiff with anger. "Your little test, your game of mercy, is over. We are no longer dealing with two pathetic adults. We are dealing with an innocent child who is about to be born into their chaos." He looked at me, his eyes burning with a new fire. "A child cannot be raised by a coward and a traitor. We have to intervene. For the baby's sake." I knew what his version of intervening meant. It meant total war. The news ripped open a wound inside me I thought had scarred over. Suddenly, I was back in that sterile white hospital room, the doctor's kind but empty words washing over me. I remembered the crushing emptiness that followed, a hollow space in my soul that nothing could fill. I remembered going to a store a week later, in a daze, and buying a single pair of tiny, soft baby shoes. I kept them hidden in a box at the back of my closet. A secret memorial for a life that never was. No one, not even my father, knew about them. Cora was getting the future I had kept locked in a box. My father's harshness, I knew, came from his own hidden pain. I remembered a night years ago, when I was at my lowest. I accused him of not understanding, of being a machine who only understood business. His face had crumpled for just a second, and he told me a secret he had carried for over 30 years. He and my mother, before I was born, had a son. He was born too early and only lived for 2 days. My father, who seemed so unbreakable, had buried his firstborn child. It explained everything. His obsession with legacy, his fierce need to protect me, and the cold fury in his eyes right now. "Intervene how?" I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. "What are you suggesting?" My father didn't hesitate. "They are broke. Liam may have a fatal illness. They are emotionally unstable. It would be easy for my lawyers to prove they are unfit to be parents." The words hit me like a physical blow. He was talking about taking their baby. Taking Cora's baby away from her. The thought was so monstrous, so completely and utterly wrong, that it snapped me out of my own pain and into a sharp, clear focus. "No," I said, the word like a shield. "Absolutely not. We will not do that. We can't." He looked at me, confused. "Why not?" "It is the logical solution. The child would be safe." I stood up, my hands flat on the desk, feeling the cold would ground me. "Because if we do that, Father, we become them. We become the people who take what isn't ours, who destroy a family because we think we have the right. We would be the real monsters of this story. I will not let that happen. I will not become that person." This was the ultimate test of my new self. It was easy to be merciful when the stakes were low. But now, with a child's future on the line, the choice was harder. "Don't you see?" I pleaded with him. "This is why my plan is more important than ever. It's not just about them anymore. It's about that baby. Forcing Liam to get tested, forcing Cora to take responsibility. It's the only chance they have to become the parents that child deserves. We can't take that chance away. We have to give it to them." My father was not convinced. I could see the argument raging in his eyes, the cold logic of protection fighting against my plea for a different kind of justice. He walked to the window and stared out at the city lights. "You are betting on the goodness of two people who have proven they have none," he said quietly. "You are gambling with an innocent child's future." He turned to face me. "I will honor your wishes. For now. But I am not sitting back and doing nothing. I have people. They will watch Liam and Cora. And the very first moment they fail, the first time they put that child's well-being at risk, my plan goes into effect." He left me alone in the silence of my office. The weight of it all, the revenge, the secrets, the baby, pressed down on me. I looked at the blueprints for my future, the Sterling Tower, but it felt meaningless. All I could think about was the tangled, broken past. Cora, a mother. Liam, a father. It was an impossible thought. I needed to understand. Not the Cora who betrayed me, but the Cora I knew before. The girl I grew up with. I needed to know if any part of that girl was left. I picked up my phone, my mind made up. My assistant's voice on the other end was professional and calm. "Yes, Ms. Olvera," she asked. I took a deep breath, my decision feeling like a leap into a dark, unknown abyss. "I need you to book me a flight," I said, "for first thing tomorrow morning." There was a pause. Of course. And the destination. I closed my eyes, picturing a small, sleepy town with a single main street, a place I hadn't been in over a decade. A place where all of this began. "Millfield," I said. "I'm going home." The private jet sliced through the clouds, leaving my new life in the city of glass and steel far below. I was flying towards my past. Millfield. A small town I had run away from 5 years ago, a place I had promised myself I would never see again. I told myself this trip was a mission. I needed to understand Cora, to figure out if the girl I once knew was still in there somewhere, for the sake of her unborn child. But I knew, deep down, this was about more than just Cora. I was going back to find the ghost of the girl I used to be, the hopeful, trusting Ally who died the day my life fell apart. I landed at a tiny airport, rented a plain, forgettable car, and drove. The moment I passed the old wooden sign that said, "Welcome to Millfield, population 3,452, it was like driving into a dream. Everything was exactly as I had left it, frozen in time. Miller's Diner, the old movie theater with the faded marquee, the town square with its cracked fountain. Each landmark was a trigger for a memory, a ghost of a laugh, a whisper of a promise. I drove past my childhood home, then past hers. A shock went through me. A weathered "for sale" sign was hammered into the lawn in front of Cora's house. I could almost see us as kids, playing in that very yard. We spent an entire summer building a treehouse in the giant oak tree that towered over the lawn. I remembered Cora's mom, Mrs. Jennings, a woman with a smile as warm as the sun, bringing us tall glasses of lemonade and telling us not to climb too high. That house, that tree, that yard. It was the headquarters of our friendship. It was supposed to be a place full of happy memories. But seeing that "for sale" sign now felt like looking at a tombstone. Why were they selling the heart of their family? The truth is, their family always had a shadow over it. They never had enough money. I remembered one winter, we were 16, and there was a school dance. Cora wanted a beautiful blue dress from a store downtown, but she knew her parents couldn't afford it. The night of the dance, she showed up wearing it. She later confessed to me, her eyes full of shame, that she had taken the money from her mother's purse. "Just this once, Ally," she had promised. "I just wanted to feel special for one night." I understood then that Cora had a hunger inside her to be more than what she was. I left her empty house behind and drove through the quiet streets. My destination wasn't a place of happy memories. It was a place where memories went to die. The Millfield nursing home stood on a hill at the edge of town, a long, low brick building that looked tired and sad. I parked the car, my heart pounding a strange, nervous rhythm against my ribs. My father thought I was weak for showing mercy. What would he think if he knew I was here? I walked through the automatic doors, into the quiet hush of the building, my mind set on seeing the one person who might have an answer. The air inside smelled of bleach and fading perfume. I went to the front desk, my voice feeling too loud in the stillness. "I'm here to see a resident," I said to the nurse. "Her name is Sandra Jennings." The nurse gave me a kind, sad smile. "Of course, dear. She's in our memory care unit, on the second floor. She has good days and bad days. Just be prepared, today seems to be a bad one." The words hit me hard. Memory care. Mrs. Jennings, the vibrant woman with the warm smile, was fading away. The "for sale" sign suddenly made a terrible kind of sense. They were selling her home to pay for her care. My heart ached for Cora in a way I hadn't allowed it to in years. Did she know how bad her mother had gotten? Did she visit? Or was she too lost in her own storm to see the wreckage she had left behind? I found Mrs. Jennings sitting in a chair by a window, looking out at a garden, but not really seeing it. I sat down next to her, my voice gentle. "Mrs. Jennings? It's me, Allegra. Allie. Cora's friend." Her eyes were cloudy, lost in a fog. I started talking about the old days, about the treehouse and the lemonade, about her famous apple pies. I talked for what felt like hours. Slowly, very slowly, a flicker of light appeared in her distant eyes. She turned to me, a fragile smile on her lips. "Allie," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves. "Cora's good friend. I knew you'd come." Her sudden clarity shocked me. "You have to help her," she pleaded, grabbing my hand with a surprising strength. "She's in so much trouble because of that boy. He made her do a terrible thing." My blood ran cold. Was she talking about Liam? Was her mind mixing up the past with what Liam and Cora had just told her on the phone? "What did he make her do, Sandra?" I asked, leaning closer. Her eyes started to cloud over again, the moment of connection slipping away. "The box," she whispered, her voice filled with a strange fear. "The little wooden box. She was always so afraid of it. She said it held a secret that would ruin everything." Before I could ask what she meant, a nurse came in with her afternoon medication, and the light in her eyes went out. I left the nursing home with my mind spinning. A little wooden box. A secret that would ruin everything. The words echoed in my head. And then, like a lightning strike, a memory from my deep past flashed in my mind. The treasure chest. A small wooden box Cora and I had decorated with glitter and shells when we were 10 years old. We filled it with our most important secrets and treasures, and we buried it in a secret spot under the big oak tree in her backyard. We promised to never dig it up. Could it possibly still be there? And what if Cora had used it to hide a new, much darker secret? Night had fallen over Millfield, wrapping the small town in a blanket of quiet darkness. I stood in Cora's empty backyard, the place where our friendship was born and where it was now buried. The words of her fading mother echoed in my mind. The little wooden box. Driven by a force I didn't understand, I found a rusty garden trowel in the old rickety shed behind the house. The moon cast long shadows from the giant oak tree, its branches like skeletal fingers pointing down at the ground. It was time to dig up the past, once and for all. I remembered the spot exactly. There was a large, flat rock with a white stripe running through it, a rock we had called our secret key. I knelt in the damp grass and started to dig. The cold, wet dirt clung to my hands, and with each scoop, a memory surfaced. I saw 2 little girls with scraped knees and grass-stained dresses, laughing as we placed our most precious treasures inside a little wooden box. We made a promise that day, a pinky promise, that we would be best friends forever and that our secrets would always be safe here. My trowel hit something hard with a dull thud. My heart leaped into my throat. Brushing away the final layer of dirt, I saw it. The box. It was smaller than I remembered, its painted flowers faded and peeling from years underground. I lifted it out. It felt heavy, not with childhood trinkets, but with the weight of unanswered questions. For a moment, I just held it, my hands trembling. A part of me wanted to throw it into the darkness and walk away, to leave the past buried. But I knew I couldn't. I had to know the secret that would ruin everything. I pried open the damp, swollen lid. On top lay the things I expected to see. A friendship bracelet I had made, its colors now faded. A perfect seashell we found on a family vacation. A small, square photograph of 2 little girls with missing front teeth, smiling at the camera as if the world was a perfect, happy place. A wave of deep, profound sadness washed over me. I wasn't looking at a monster's past. I was looking at my own. I was looking at everything I had lost. But underneath it all, there was something else. A thick, yellowed envelope that didn't belong. It wasn't from our childhood. My name, Ali, was written on the front in Cora's familiar teenage handwriting. My fingers shook as I tore it open. Inside wasn't a letter full of secrets. It was a legal document. A birth certificate. And at the top of it was my name, Allegra Jennings. My mother's name was listed as Sandra Jennings. And then, I saw the second document, a folded DNA report from years ago. My eyes scanned the page, and the world stopped turning. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Father, Arthur Olvera. The universe cracked open, and every piece of my life rearranged itself into a new, horrific picture. Cora wasn't just my best friend who had betrayed me. She was my half-sister. Her mother was my mother. My father, my powerful, righteous father, had a secret family he had left behind in this small town. Cora's jealousy, her resentment, her feeling that I had a perfect life. It was because I was living the life she felt was stolen from her, with the father she never got to have. My father's cold fury wasn't just for me. It was to erase the shame of his own past. Everything became clear. Mrs. Jennings's confused words about a boy making Cora do a terrible thing. She wasn't talking about Liam. She was talking about my father, the man who broke her heart and left her with a secret. The hatred between our families wasn't born from a simple betrayal. It was a deep, twisted root of secrets and lies, planted long before I was even born. This was never a story about a cheating boyfriend. It was the story of two sisters, set against each other by the sins of their parents. Sitting there in the cold dirt, under the branches of our childhood tree, the anger in my heart vanished. It was replaced by a vast, aching sadness. My perfectly planned revenge felt small and meaningless now. What was the point of punishing them when we had all been living in a prison built by my father's lies? There was only one path forward. It wasn't about winning. It was about ending the cycle of pain. It was about the two innocent children caught in this tangled web, Cora's unborn baby, and the broken little girl still hiding inside of me. I didn't destroy them. In the end, I chose to build. I called my father and told him I knew everything. The wall between us crumbled, and for the first time, I saw him not as a king, but as a flawed man. I used my power not to crush, but to heal. I moved Mrs. Jennings to the finest memory care facility near the city, where she could be looked after with kindness. I anonymously set up a trust fund for Cora and Liam's baby, ensuring that child would never have to feel the hunger and insecurity that had poisoned their parents. My final act of revenge was to give them the one thing they never gave me, a future free from fear. Today, I stand on the top floor of the newly finished Sterling Tower. It's not a monument to my anger anymore. It's a testament to the fact that you can build something beautiful from a broken foundation. I am no longer defined by the people who hurt me or the secrets that were kept from me. I am the architect of my own life. True power isn't about revenge. It's about having the strength to forgive, not for them, but for yourself. It's about letting go of the past so you can finally build your future. Thank you so much for following my story. It was a difficult journey, but your support meant the world. If my story touched you, or if you believe in the power of second chances, please hit the like button, share this video with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of strength and survival.